This SoonerScoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIKs.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, Bob Prisbillo from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Got a media extravaganza coming up on Wednesday. I know that George and I were talking about it yesterday. A full spring preview coming with the great Josh McCuistion on today, on Tuesday, that you can see here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. This is the Stickball report. A little bit better, more, I guess, exciting things to talk about than we had to discuss yesterday with the Hoops report.
Still undefeated.
Still undefeated.
Multiple.
Both teams, 30-0 combined for OU baseball as well as OU softball. The softball team is where we'll start, 19-0 going into the first SEC conference play weekend with South Carolina coming to town. Maybe one of the upstart programs
absolutely.
In terms of like biggest surprises in the country. I was talking to Ryan Chapman about this on this morning on Tuesday. It seems like of all the teams in the country right now that find themselves in the top 25, South Carolina might be the biggest surprise.
Exactly. This feels a lot like football. Like you start looking at the SEC schedules, like, okay, Tennessee's coming, Alabama's coming. That's going to be hard. At least the Gamecocks will be a sure win. That didn't happen, obviously. Then you look at softball. Well, okay, you're going to have Texas coming to town. Tennessee's coming. Well, at least South Carolina will be a nice, easy three-game sweep.
You don't think of South Carolina softball being that team.
We were even talking last week. Like, well, they're going to play Duke over the weekend. Mentally, I'm thinking Duke takes at least 2 or 3. Maybe Duke
in Durham, no less.
Maybe Duke even sweeps them. Instead, South Carolina, Quincy Lilio leading the charge, and they sweep Blue Devils. Now they're 19-0. They'll actually play Youngstown State during this midweek, so they'll be 20-0 when they get to Love's Field. And all of a sudden, the little warm up or little tune up that you thought you might have going into the heart of the SEC schedule, now it's 2 versus 9.
Unbelievable. OU, obviously, I think we talked about last week. They still had some questions to answer going into this final non-conference weekend. In turn, they come out 5-0. 5-run rules, and really kind of beat that ass over the weekend. A 9-1 win over Marshall, a 9-1 win over Kansas, an 8-0 win over Kansas, an 11-0 win over Marshall, and then God help Kansas City. Yeah. It doesn't sound like they're going to be winning too many games this year. A 17-1 run explosion. Let's just start here. What was the most impressive part about the weekend to you?
Besides the fact you dominate the way you're supposed to, that was a nice little power surge.
Sure.
And that's something Patty mentioned after Sunday's win. Is that, there's been times last 2-3 years where even if the bats don't have it going, you could hit 3-4 home runs in like a 2-inning stretch, and all of a sudden you've separated on the scoreboard. Everyone's breathing easy. That hasn't really been the case through the first 3 weekends for this team, but they got it going. A lot of home runs. Your captain getting it going with Nellie McEnroe, Marinas. She hit the long ball a couple times. Tia Malloy continues to do it. Isabella Emmerling had a 7 RBI game in that 17-1 victory. So I don't know if they can sustain it, but a lot of confidence built up from doing what you're supposed to be doing. And some people who are not off to as good of a start as what they might have hoped for had a very nice weekend.
Seemed like, we had her on the radio show last week over at One Oklahoma with Nellie McEnroe Moranis. It seems like it is coming together, though. The power numbers are starting to show out.
Absolutely. It can't just be Ella Parker, Cassidy Pickering. You can't just rely on those two, although they will probably come up big time and time again.
You can't lean on them, but it would be nice to have other production.
It's nice to have some other people that are coming along for the ride, and really it has been Emmerling and Malloy. They're tied with 5 home runs. Cassidy Pickering leading the way with 7 at this point. The team has 39 compared to just giving up 5. So it's being spread out. And, we said it, like the competition wasn't going to be intense last weekend. But there are things that you do. The way that you play can carry over. And I think that's what Patty is trying to take into this initial SEC series.
Obviously, when you look at the box scores from over the weekend and you only give up 3 runs in 5 games, had 2 shutouts, You would imagine that Sam Landry's rounding into form or just picking up where she's left off. It seems like every time she's in the circle. Where is the pitching staff going into conference play?
Yeah, and that was another thing Patty mentioned Sunday, they had 4 pitchers. Even though 17-1, they used 4 pitchers, want them all to be ready to be, hey, moment's notice, we're going to call on you. You got to be able to step up and make that type of charge. So I think Sam Landry is your number 1 at this point. Kirsten Deal, I think, is the number 2. And Bella Smith will be interesting. That's the one I'm really watching the most. Is she going to become a starter or be more used from the bullpen? Yeah, I think she can adjust to whatever role is being asked of her. So I wonder, between her, Audrey Lowry, does that just go back and forth like on a Sunday, or do you start going Sam Landry Friday, Sunday, or how that works out? But you've got 4 pitchers that have thrown at least 20 innings to this point, and that is exactly what Patty was hoping for, and it's what she said. It's like, you can't just lean on 1 or 2 pitchers. We know that era is long gone, but you've got these 4 pitchers that have thrown at least 20 frames, and they're all doing it at a very high level to where you have confidence that no matter who steps in this weekend, you feel pretty good about your chances.
And as we were talking about with South Carolina, it wasn't just the fact that they went out there and threw shutouts the entire time. They did score some runs over the course of the weekend in Durham, a 14-7 win. They had the 12-7 win on Sunday on getaway day, a 4-2 win in between. It seems like they did a little bit of everything in terms of they could score some runs, and then they've also played in close games as well.
Yeah, you look at Ariana Rhodey, she has 8 of the team's 17 home runs, so you're going to have to contain her when they get the loves. And we mentioned Quincy, 569 as an everyday player. I think for those who've watched her in Norman, I'm not sure we saw.
Not so much. That's not what she was giving Oklahoma.
Saw that type of potential, so she's really turned it on. But yeah, it's been very impressive again, because I thought Duke would be able to handle them, bring them back down to earth, get you more familiar in terms of expecting the 3-game sweep this weekend. Instead, their confidence will never be as high as it is going into Loves, and the weather outside Saturday should be really nice for what looks like a great opening series to begin conference play.
It has to be a little bit, I don't know, for the rest of the country to see the OU players that transfer out and then they go and they dominate. And there's a number of them that are at other places now and playing integral roles within the programs of their new programs. It just has to be a reminder to everybody else. Like, we might have seen one of the best lineups from top to bottom, literally from top to bottom, not just 1 through 9,
but 1 through 21
that has ever been constructed. I mean, I guess there's a reason why they've won 4 national championships over the last couple years, or over the last 4 years. In terms of Oklahoma and the questions going into conference play, I know that some were kind of alleviated or answered coming out of last weekend. What are some of the big questions, I guess, as Oklahoma goes into this new endeavor that is the SEC?
It's still if the freshmen can step up in the moment, because what we learned initially through this first month, they need them. They're going to have to rely on some of these first-year players to be ready for their moment time and time again. And what you've loved is what you've seen from a Tia Malloy or a Gabby Garcia, especially Sydney Barker. Like, you feel like you can trust them based off what they've done. But now here comes the heart of the schedule, but much better pitching, much better defense. You're going to have to really earn it every single day. And does that mentally wear on you? Not physically. I think physically, now you start going from playing 6 games in 3 days to just playing 1 a day.
Sure.
You're going to be all right physically, but mentally it's going to be getting up for every single game, because they're up for you every single day.
It has been interesting in the way that the schedule worked out for Oklahoma through this 19-0 start. They didn't go out to California to play in the Mary Nutter, in the big classic. It didn't seem like they had those premier non-conference settings outside of maybe a couple at the beginning of the season. But it will be kind of interesting to see like the highs and lows. And you would think that, the way that Patty operates, and she's having been tested, whether it be a Bowling Green and you're having to walk off with a big Cassidy Pickering walk off, it will be interesting to see how they navigate if they are to go through some of these ups and the peaks and valleys of a season.
Yeah, and that's why one of the big questions coming in was who was going to be your vocal leader.
Sure.
Kinsey Hansen, Tiara Jennings, Jada Coleman, the list goes on and on. But is Ella Parker, as a sophomore, ready to be that type of person? Because Sydney Sanders, although she's a leader in her own right, that's not what she
Right.
does. So if
A
there's
little bit of a leader by example.
a leader behind the scenes.
Sure.
I want to talk to you one-on-one. Hey, how are things going? How can I help? I've been here before. I know how I can get you through it. If there's any adversity this weekend, as Patty loves to say, who's going to bow up? Who's going to be that person that leads the charge?
Completely stupid question on my part because I just basically box score watched while I was over at baseball and did that. Where's Hannah Corbat right now?
She came back for the first time on Sunday,
Okay.
pinch hitting role.
Okay.
And hit a 2-run single.
Okay, she's fine.
Crowd went nuts. We were able to talk to her. She's like, yeah, I was rehabbing. Yeah, I've been through this a time or two before.
Sure.
So actually, it's not that tough on me. I know what to expect. I know what I got to do to go through it. But, it sounded like maybe she's a week ahead of schedule. I think this was the target date in terms of trying to bring her back. Instead, she gets that plate appearance Sunday. And now, again, another person that you can trust going into this weekend.
No midweek game, obviously, for Oklahoma as they head into SEC play. They do have Tulsa on the other side, which perennially has been a pretty good opponent, just in terms of you usually see them in the Norman Regional at some point over the last 5 years. I think they've gotten a little bit of a reprieve from having been sent there time and time again, it seemed like, during some of the early runs for Oklahoma. But outside of that, you go through South Carolina this week, and then it's basically a regional type setting, even this one included coming up this weekend, every single weekend from here on out.
Yeah, you start going to Arkansas, you got, Tennessee coming into town, like the rest of this month. We'll absolutely test what this team is made of, how good they really are. And I think, it's good to find that out now. You not saying you had kitty gloves for this first month, but
Sure.
because of that schedule, you're like, what are we really learning? You're giving them opportunities and you're seeing what they can do with them. But now it's like, all right, this is, this, as they love to say, it's cut into like 3 parts of the season. You have your preseason, the non-conference. Now you got your conference season, and then it's championship season. We're not there yet, clearly, but we have reached the second part of the season, and who is ready to make the leap?
Still about a month away from that second week of April, but that will be fun with Bedlam at Devon Park coming up on April 9th on Wednesday, April 9th, and then I believe it is Tuscaloosa or Alabama that comes in, or Oklahoma goes to Tuscaloosa the return weekend on April 12th, kind of around the spring game weekend, if you will. It's been canceled. Watch softball.
You might have heard that.
You might have heard that. It will be interesting, though. Fantastic start for the softball program, 19-0. I think the joke around here has been the demise of the program has been greatly exaggerated. But you can say that and then also talk about what we talked about with there are still some questions in how the freshmen are going to react when you get into some of these competitive series.
Because when they played them at the time of the schedule, Baylor's their only ranked opponent. But going in this week, no one is ranked.
Sure.
San Diego State had a rough last couple weeks. Baylor hasn't been anything close to what they thought it might initially be. So they come into this weekend without a ranked opponent victory. And that's what people will point towards and say, why are they number one? With softball America, who we are partners with, has them at number 2, so I've got to hear that for the last 24 hours.
I'm sure that's been fun.
And I'm sure Brady Vernon has enjoyed that as well. But it's, who have you played? And this would be, if you could sweep Gamecocks and really tell people, yeah, we are still who you think we are, that might be enough to get them to make that leap.
And I'm sure that, being doubted is something that Patty Gasso and JT Gasso would kind of like. I'm sure that it's a reminder of, hey, this is a new team. This is a new group. You got to go make your own, kind of quest or destiny or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, for a team that's probably been hard to find the chip on the shoulder.
Sure.
They got it last, May after the Bedlam series loss. A lot of people wondering what was going to happen there and the way they responded. That's what you're going to be expecting. And it's for a lot of people that haven't been in that position before. So we'll all find out together.
It's going to be fun. OU softball hosting South Carolina coming up this weekend, a top 25 matchup. On the flip side, the baseball side of things, they win 5 games last week, sweep a midweek against Texas Southern. The Wednesday game, you usually probably don't want to have to be bringing in Dylan Crooks to get out of a game. but they did.
Wednesday,
and they did get it
and
done.
Sunday. Wednesday and
Sunday.
They had their moments.
They had their moments for sure. Outscored CSUN over the weekend, 22-4. Had the close one on Sunday, a 3-2 win, but got out of there with a win. And I think that, at the end of the day, when you're going through the beginnings of a season, it's kind of like softball. You won a game, you're not going to complain about it. Another really good performance for, kind of that trio of guys in Sam Christensen, Trey Gamble, Dayton Taki had a massive day on Saturday, going 4 for 4, knocking in a couple runs in a 10-1 win. Starting pitching's been excellent. I think tonight, though, Tuesday night, they go down to Dallas and they take on Dallas Baptist, who has been a thorn in Oklahoma's side over the last, however many years, winning 5 of the last 7 against Oklahoma. Kate Crossland making his first career start for Oklahoma, even though he's made 2 appearances out of the bullpen this season. So all in all, this is a team that is definitely starting to make a little bit of noise. Baseball America recognized that they're playing baseball this year, going from unranked to number 10 in the country, moved up a spot, I believe, in D1 baseball, number 12 in perfect game. There's like 4 or 5 of them. It's kind of like the softball experience. It's like, okay, are we going to use the National Baseball Congress, Writers Association? I don't know. I guess if it helps OU or if it looks good, we will. But all in all, it's been a fantastic start to a season that, I think there was a lot of question marks about what they were going to get offensively, losing 75% of the contributions a year ago.
Want to ask about Sunday, just because watching it in the softball press box, first time, did you feel like, they just slept-walked through this one?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, some pretty uncompetitive at-bats early in the game, but, again, it was kind of one of those situations that the pitching kept him in the game. And Cam Johnson, his, final line doesn't probably reflect how well he pitched in that game. 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. I think he went 5 1/3, gave up a couple hits. It will be interesting to see how they are able to navigate those days against a really good team, which I think is going to be fun to see what they do against Dallas Baptist tonight. But at the same time, I do think that this is a team offensively that they just need a little bit of a spark. And when they do get that spark, like we saw a couple weeks ago down in Round Rock, or even this past weekend against CSUN, it comes together and they're able to produce and they're able to manufacture some runs, whether it be through big flies or even through smaller things like a double on Sunday from Dawson Willis, who has been struggling at the bottom of the OU lineup. And we talked to him after the game. He's worked a lot with Russell Raley, making that jump from D2 ball. So it's kind of one of those things. Are you going to build off of that, or are you going to go back to going, 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts?
You've said before, Skip doesn't care much for the midweek game. Does it change his approach tonight? Like, does this feel like something I like to make a little bit of a statement?
Yes and no. I think that they obviously would like to go down there because a win against the Dallas Baptist team that is predicted to win the conference, Conference USA, it's going to be good for RPI purposes. Yep. Maybe that tone has changed a little bit when you get a UT Arlington coming back to town or something in a couple of weeks. Louisiana Tech coming up to town next week. A little bit of a better competition, probably a tier below Dallas Baptist. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a game that you want to obviously go win because I think it could go a long way when you're looking at RPI purposes at the end of the season. And I don't think a win over Dallas Baptist is the difference in getting a regional and not winning a regional because there's so much to play for in the SEC week in and week out, kind of like softball, but it would be a nice feather in the cap.
And is it starting to feel real? Or
yeah,
like we talked last week with softball, there's so many questions that I don't know if we have them all answered. What are maybe 2 of the biggest questions that after these initial weeks you're like, that's okay now, but in SEC play that might hurt?
Yeah, I think you automatically go back to the offensive production. Is Dayton Taki going to be able to do what he has been able to do when you're going against an Ole Miss or an LSU or a Texas? Sam Christensen has walked. They've walked 70 times. Sam Christensen walked 17 times this season. That's top 5 nationally. Are you going to be able to separate balls from strikes against some of the best pitching in the country? Is Kyle Branch going to be able to hit 415 over the course of SEC play? Probably not. But is he going to be able to give you contribution every time he goes to the plate? Is he going to be able to move runners over, if nothing else, if you're not getting hit? So I think that, so far, so good. Obviously, when you look at OU's hitting 330 as a team, that's currently top 25 in the country. that's going to work in the grand scheme of things if you're able to continue to do that. So I would say just like overall offensive production, I think they're averaging just under 9 runs a game, which is phenomenal considering where they were coming from and who they lost from a season ago. But at the same time, I do think that you have to keep a little bit of a perspective and reality and know that there's going to be bigger stages and there's going to be much better competition coming up on the schedule here over the next 2 months, basically, before you get to the end of the regular season. So that's all been good. I do think that, they've been able to get it through some, I don't want to say lackluster starts, but through some probably not your best type of starts, if that makes sense. Like, even a Kyson. I didn't think he pitched particularly well last Friday against CSUN, but at the end of the day, he was still overpowering at times when he needed to get out of jams. So I thought they pitched with runners in scoring position pretty well for the most part over the course of a weekend. Of course, that's going to happen when you outscore a team 22-4, but they've been able to get out of these jams. What happens when you have somebody that is one of the best hitters in the country up at the plate? That's going to be kind of my biggest questions going into not so much this next week, because Sam Houston State's coming to town, not a very good baseball team. They should be able to get through that, but you can still continue to rack up a lot of wins here over the next couple weeks before you enter SEC play next weekend against South Carolina.
South Carolina again.
Yeah, there's a lot of comparison within the OU softball and baseball schedule. It seems like obviously they're playing the same opponents, but it seems like they're playing the same opponents on like the same weekends almost.
They're also playing the same time.
Sure.
Too much, but that's neither here nor there. Want to talk a little bit of a downer here. Let's talk about Grant Stevens.
Yeah, it sucks. I don't know any other way to say it. He had UCL surgery last Friday, announced, I believe on Sunday, or it might have been Monday morning, that he's technically medically retired from baseball, which it sucks. I mean, anytime that you see a guy that is a graduate senior coming back for another year, not to say that he was going to be a big part of the weekend rotation, but I do think that he was going to be a guy that, especially from the left side of the bullpen, where it seems like Jamie Hitt's pitching like every day. And I don't know if that's necessarily the most comfortable situation. Can you get a Jaden Barfield to be that guy out of the bullpen from the left side? It's going to be interesting. Gavin Jones has been really good. I think that they're kind of still looking for arms to rely on, not so much out of the bullpen, but from the left side so they can match up against right-handed batters. So we'll see. I don't know. It just does suck for Grant because he was a big part of that back end of the schedule last year, making the 9 starts on the back end, helping Oklahoma get to a Big 12 regular season title for the first time in school history. He was phenomenal in the Big 12 tournament in the semifinal against Kansas when nobody could get it out. He came in and pitched, I think it was 5 1/3, and then obviously what he did in the elimination game against Duke in the Dorman Regional, pitching 7 innings of 1-run baseball and really kind of keeping Oklahoma's season alive for them to go against UConn in the regional championship. So it sucks. I think that, to a man, everybody loves Grant Stevens within the Oklahoma program. He's kind of a old school, like just blue collar guy that, probably doesn't have the talent that somebody like a Kyson Witherspoon has, but he made it work. And to see what he was able to do for Oklahoma last season and transferring over from Pacific and not really knowing where his role was going to be by about the midpoint season. And they're like, hey, we need somebody to pitch on Sundays. Can you do that? And he took it and ran with it. So that sucks. But, I think he is going to try to maybe stay on with the Oklahoma staff in some type of, graduate assistant role. That spot obviously isn't open this season, but maybe he comes back next season as a graduate assistant within the program. So I know that, there's a number of former players that are trying to kind of stay around. I know Diego and
Diego. Imagine how quickly that starts happening.
100%. Diego Muniz and now I'm trying Tanner Treadway. I'm dying.
Oh no.
We're okay. We're gonna make it. But there's a lot of guys that are around. So big week, I guess. It's a big night more so than it is a big week. You want to get through it though and get into conference play on the right foot. Much like, kind of like the same questions that were presented with the softball
last
team,
week.
or kind of the
It's
same
the
ones that are,
baseball
that are on the baseball side of things this week.
Maybe outside of the familiar names, maybe who is a name or two this weekend that might get a bit more chances than what they've initially had?
Something that's going to be interesting to watch. He was a late scratch on Sunday in Jason Walk, and it sounds like a little bit of a leg injury, and that we asked Skip after the game on Sunday about it. He really downplayed it. So I'm kind of interested to see if he's in the lineup tonight, but if he's not able to go, Deshaun Harris has been excellent for Oklahoma this year, and filling in for Jason Walk, getting a little bit of that treatment that Jason Walk got a year ago when John Spikerman was sidelined at the beginning of the season. He's taken it and kind of run with it. So we'll see. They got Scott Mudler back last weekend, too, from having the flu. Basically, the reason why Kate Crossland didn't pitch over the weekend was because of Scott Mudler. I think we're going to blame it on him. The flu was kind of running through the program. So everybody's good. Other than that, haven't seen Taylor Tatum yet this year. I know that he's working through a little bit of a injury. I think it was a knee injury, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be something that is going to be a long-term deal. And they're pretty loaded in the outfield right now. So it's going to be kind of interesting. That might kind of bleed over into football and kind of where that situation is going to be at the beginning of spring ball for them on Thursday. So all in all, it's been a really good run here for Oklahoma baseball and softball. And that's going to do it for this week's Stickball Report. For Bob Prisbillo, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you next week.